and make sure that people will be around and healthy when the price starts picking up again. As for 2016, before we go on to some of the detail, we think it's going to be pretty well muted. No real change in 2015, as has already been said by other people. But it's an ideal opportunity to rebalance and reset the industry mindset as to how we deal with this industry, rather than going from boom to bust, boom to bust, boom to bust, year after year after year, or cycle after cycle after cycle. It doesn't have to be like that. It's not a predetermined economic cycle. It's something that we can and must get to grips with. There's several reasons why we feel the cycle price adjustment has room to continue. In other words, why we think, why we think, why we think we're going to be up here. We don't think this is practical. We think we're going to stay on the red line. And there's several reasons for that. First one is that miners continue to inflate the valuations of their operation. They're over-optimistic about business conditions, and they're only fooling themselves, nobody else. Some shareholders fall for it clearly. But at the end of the day, unless they get real forecasts, they're not going to get out of the hole. They're not going to survive this downturn. There's a tendency for miners to extrapolate the 2010-2014 growth rates rather than looking forward and working out from a risk point of view where they should be. They're using historical data, and that's of no use whatsoever. It is missing the point completely. The mining industry is using, in their models, they use financing costs which are far lower than the reality exists in the marketplace. And they get away with it, again, because some funders want to see projects on their balance sheet, but it's not doing the mining industry any favours. They have to get realistic when they're doing models and make sure that their investment pitches are correctly costed and not all attractive and sugar-coated. And yes, investors have a role to play as well, but the mining industry has got to start being truthful with itself. There are lots of projects out there which should never, ever have got off the ground. And millions of dollars have been put into them and wasted, and giving the mining industry a pretty bad name and makes it very negative for investors. And the anti-mining bias is alive and well. People don't want to invest in mines. I think it was said in one of the earlier presentations that people are looking for a return over the next 1 to 2, 3 years maximum. They're not looking at 7, 10, 15 years. We've got to get around that if we're to rebuild the industry. Fourth reason that we think this is going to happen is that there's a poor hit rate on explorations, and they're poorly funded. There's no way out of that. It's a global phenomenon, but that will prolong the bottoming out of this curve. And the last one really is probably the one that we come across more often than not with all the people we talk to, and I'm sure it's not unfamiliar with people in this room, is that companies that had a $2, $3 share price a year, 18 months ago, taking a hit with the commodity drop, taking a hit with cost cutting, taking a hit with the general market perception, and their share price went from $2, for example, down to say 15 cents. Then it rallies a little bit and goes back from 15 to 20 to 30 cents, and suddenly the miners are talking about great improvements they've got. And they ignore the fact that it was sitting at $2 less than 2 years ago. That's got to stop. Because what they're doing is, the management do it, shareholders fall for it, no one looks at the analysis, apart from professional analysts, but in the general day-to-day part of the industry, is suddenly people see that, or think, there's a perception of an uplift. And there's no uplift until you get back to the original $2 share price. So you're fooling yourselves. Until we get out of this perception of sugarcoating everything, then we're going to stay on the bottom of this cycle, no matter what. Even if the share price picks up, I think the mining operations are going to stay down there. The share price isn't going to pick up necessarily in line with commodity pricing. They've got to get through that. So everyone has a different idea, and the general public, as we said, sees mining as dirty, it's old, it's dangerous, it's environmentally contentious. And therefore, we've got to reset the way we do this. And mining companies will have to lose this rigid and ironclad model that they've had for years and years. And I pointed out earlier in the panel, those that missed it, I do want to repeat it because it's a model that's worth bearing in mind. The Anglo-American corporation in South Africa has a business model that went unchanged from 1999 through to 2003. They had the same basic business model. And it served them well. They went through in the 50s, 60s and 70s, in the middle of the 20th century. As I said, you couldn't steal money fast enough from Anglo for them to make a loss. It was a license to print money. But by not adapting the way they've approached the business and ignoring the changes that exist in the current markets, their model has now ill-served them. They haven't changed it. They've lost something like 2/3 of their market capitalization over the last 3 or 4 years. They're paying off 80,000 people worldwide, and they're stripping right back to just core asset. That's once the world's largest company. If it can happen to them, there's no wonder that all the small businesses are struggling by following the same example. So what is it that we do in getting around this? I said first of all, there are 4 or 5 points that we actually work with people. The business model innovation is the first one that we drive with. We stop the business chasing the revenues. It's got to be demand-driven, not supply-driven. So stop chasing the ounces, stop funding for output where you can't sustain the operation. You've got to be driven by what you can sell at a profit, and if you can't sell it at a profit, don't produce it. And it's going against the total flow of the industry, because everyone is ounces, 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 dig it up, identify it, dig it up, get it out there. It doesn't work in the long term.